Hey everyone, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha, this is Jovi, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of October. So I'm not gonna lie, I am a little shocked that I actually read as many books as I did this month. I can't remember exactly the number that I set out to read. I'm pretty sure it was more than this, but I read 13 books this month, and it's October and Halloween, so I love that I read like 13 books. So I am just like, honestly, again, shocked that I read so many because I've been reading like less than 10 books a month, but I really pushed myself this month to read as many spooky books that I could. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into it and talk about the books that I read. First, I want to talk about the books that I carried over from September, and I actually didn't think that I was going to finish this book this month, but my friend Gwen started reading it, and I was really intrigued to finish it with her, so we buddy read the second half, and that is A Cosmology of Monsters by Shaun Hamill. This is a horror novel, and it is very unique, I think. So this was Shaun Hamill's debut, and this follows our main character, Noah Turner. And Noah and his family own this like haunted experience. I think it's called, let's see, The Wandering Dark, or it's called The Wandering. And so his family own this, and they operate this kind of like haunted experience. And you get to kind of see different perspectives from different sides of his family, from his mom, his dad, and their story, and then his sisters and their stories. And his family kind of struggles with dealing with monsters, and they have all of their different ways of coping, but Noah actually lets the monsters in. So this is a, again, really unique story, and one that I really enjoyed, actually. I gave this book, I think, 3 stars. And I really don't know how to describe my feelings on this. The writing was really well done and really unique in my opinion. I know a lot of people have read this and they didn't really enjoy it, but I found it to be really interesting. There were parts of it that I didn't like. I definitely think if you have a lot of triggers that you should probably look up the trigger warnings for this book because there's lots of different things that go on. There are some things that I felt were a little insensitive, but overall, I just thought this was really interesting. Not Joe Hill. Well, maybe Joe Hill did say something. No, Joe Hill didn't. Stephen King blurbed this, and C.J. Tudor, Jennifer McMahon, Carmen Maria Machado, Ellen Datlow. I mean, all those horror authors blurbed this and said good things about it. And this is good for, I think somebody said it was Stephen King, if John Irving ever wrote a horror novel, it would be something like this. I've not read from John Irving. I've read a little from Stephen King, but I don't love him. But this was just really good. It's very dark, and I'm honestly like really confused about the ending. And so that's a big part of this is I love to be confused, but I need to understand what the author was trying to do. And I didn't really understand. So this wasn't necessarily my favorite. I feel like Gwen and I both theorized all these different things that could have been happening in this book, and none of those things were what was happening in this book. And I feel like one of our endings would have been better. But I just don't get it. But I think that some people would, and I think the people that don't are the people that are giving this 1 star. But I don't know, it was very unique, and I gave it 3 stars, and I haven't quite decided whether or not I'm going to keep it in my collection, but I do want to hear more people's thoughts on this because I just found it to be a really interesting read. Next, I want to talk about my Bookathon books that I read. So let's just go ahead and start with the ones that I didn't like as much, and we'll go up to the ones that were my favorites. So first, let's talk about The Halloween Tree by Bradbury. I was really looking forward to reading this book. I absolutely love this cover. It is a classic, which scared me a little bit, but I was like, I am probably gonna like it because it's a kid's classic. And I've read things like Anne of Green Gables and Charlotte's Web, The Secret Garden, and I've really enjoyed those classics, so maybe I'll enjoy this one. No, I do not like Ray Bradbury's writing. And if I was a kid in the 70s and this was a book that was handed to me and this was gonna determine whether or not I enjoyed reading, I would not enjoy reading. I sped the audiobook up to like 3 times speed to finish this because I just didn't enjoy it at all. I think I know what the author was trying to do with it, but I don't feel like it was done well. I really just don't like his writing, and I feel like the story could have been told better by somebody else. That's my opinion. Obviously, Ray Bradbury is a classic author and a well-known author for a reason, so please don't take my word for anything important, but my opinion is that this is garbage. So I did not like The Halloween Tree at all. It follows this group of friends who are going out on Halloween night to trick-or-treat, and Pip is one of their friends who goes missing, and Pip has got some stuff going on. You'll learn about the book. And the kids, as they're trying to rescue Pip, go through all of these different what do you call them, like festivals or holidays celebrated in or around Halloween. So you get like Dia de los Muertos, you get to go to Notre Dame Cathedral, tombs of ancient Egypt, just all this different stuff, and learn about all that. But I feel like I would have enjoyed this better if it was in a textbook, and that's saying a lot. The next book I want to talk about is Ghost Squad by Claribel A. Ortega. I gave this book 3 stars objectively. For me, it was just 2 stars. It was okay, but I did rate this 3 stars on Goodreads. I think for the intended middle grade audience that kids would really like this book. It was very whimsical and magical, and very light. I would have liked a little more depth in this, but the story follows our main character, Lucely Luna, and for her, ghosts are more than just the family business. So right before Halloween, Lucely and her best friend Sid cast a spell that accidentally awakens malicious spirits that wreak havoc throughout their hometown of St. Augustine, Florida. Sid's witch grandmother, Babette, and her chubby Chunk are kind of recruited in to fight this haunting head on. This book, Lucely Luna, she has like this tree in her backyard where all of her dead family members kind of exist. So she has ghosts all around her house, and she lives with her and her dad. Her dad is Dominican. I'm trying to remember if it was her dad or her mom. Her dad is Dominican, and I believe her mom was black. I don't know if it ever said, and I'm so sorry that I can't remember, but I'm making assumptions based off the cover. But she talks about how she gets her hair from her mom, and this is our main character. And so her dad is Dominican, and there's Dominican representation here. The author is actually Dominican, and I feel like this was very much inspired by her heritage, which I thought was really neat. I think it's based on Dominican folklore. And it kind of reminded me of Dia de los Muertos kind of stuff. It's not exactly the same. I mean, obviously they're different heritages and cultures, but it did remind me of that. It reminded me of movies like Coco or The Book of Life, mostly Coco. And it also reminded me of a little bit of Ghostbusters, which is how this book is pitched. It's also pitched as being a little bit Stranger Things-esque. But if you like all of those things, I will not guarantee you that you like this book, because I did not, and I do like all of those things. So to me, it just lacked a little bit of depth, and it was just okay. Like, it wasn't a bad book, but it was just okay for me. It was fine. Like, it just didn't hold my attention. I think it was a very adventurous story, and like I said, I think it would be great for the intended audience, but as an adult reading a middle grade, I just didn't really care for it too much. Then I read Up to No Ghoul by Cullen, Bunn, and Kat Ferris. I had read The Ghoul Next Door last year and really enjoyed that book, and this is the sequel. I really enjoyed the first book. It's one of my favorite graphic novels. I gave it 5 stars, and unfortunately, this one was not quite that. This is a 3-star read. It was good. I did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy the villain as much in this one, and I feel like the first story, you get to meet Gray and Lavinia, who are on the cover of this book. Lavinia is our ghoul. And the first book really is talking about Lavinia's backstory, and it also shows the building of friendship between Cullen and Lavinia. I mean, not Cullen, sorry, Gray and Lavinia. And this book was just kind of like more surface level, and I also really didn't enjoy the villain in the story as much. So that's why it was 3 stars, but I still really enjoy this unique art style in the book and the writing, and it did set up for a 3rd novel, so I'm definitely going to be picking the 3rd one up. But I just feel like I would have liked this better if it was a standalone, like if the first book was a standalone. Then I read The Haunting of Aveline Jones by Phil Hickes. This was our group pick buddy read for Bookathon, and this is a really good story. I think if you are an adult trying to get into middle grade and you enjoy like horror, mystery thrillers, or you just enjoy a really good ghost story, that this might be a good pick for you. This story follows Aveline Jones, and she is going to stay with her aunt at this like coastal spooky town. Think like a haunted Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. And she is ending up, she goes to this bookstore and she finds this book that belonged to Primrose Pemberthy, which is a girl who disappeared all these years ago. And she is kind of investigating Primrose's disappearance with some help from her new friend Harold. But now someone or something is stirring, and it is looking for Aveline. So again, if you like a really good ghost story, I think this would be a good book for you. I rated this book 4 stars, and the reason being because in my spooky middle grade, I found that I love a little bit more depth, or I love ones that kind of relate with real life things. So like trauma or grief or depression or anxiety or worries or anything like that, like mental health. I really enjoy those stories that have kind of like a more hard-hitting element. And with this, I feel like this was just a scary story for the sake of being a scary story. So for me, that was a 4-star book, but I still think it was phenomenal. The atmosphere was on point. I think a lot of people would love this one. I don't think there was anybody that read this book in our discussion with Bookathon that did not like this book, so that's a win-win for me. Thought it was a really good one, and I cannot wait to pick up the second book in this series. I don't know if it's going to be more than a trilogy, but I know the third book is coming out the end of this month or the end of October, and so I'm really excited to pick up the rest of the books in the series. And my favorite book that I read for Bookathon, which is also really controversial because of my feelings about it, is Spirit Hunters by Ellen O. This is the scariest book that I've ever read in my life. Yes, it is a middle grade and it's scarier than any adult book that I've ever read. This is scarier than The Winter People. This is scarier than Home Before Dark. This is a very scary story. So it follows our main character, Harper Rain, and she has just moved into her new house in Washington, D.C. with her family. It's her mom, her dad, her older sister, and her younger brother, and some strange things start happening. People say that their house is haunted, and her little brother has this new friend that you find out from the first couple of pages. His name is Billy, I believe. And some things happen with her brother, and it's a very haunted situation. There's a possession situation. There's some stuff that I just am not a huge fan of, as far as like, I've read a lot of books about demonic possession lately, and I feel like I need to get out of that, because that is something that unnerves me. But this is a very creepy book. So if you like a scary story, I think this is a good book for you. But this was very well done, very detailed, very immersive for a middle grade book. And I think that most people that really enjoy scary stories will enjoy this one. It was just fleshed out really, really well. So if this sounds at all interesting to you, I would recommend you picking it up. Next, I want to talk about my buddy read for this month. I actually have 2 buddy reads for this month, but one of them will be in a different section. So this is just like the buddy read alone section. And this is Suburban Hell by Maureen Kilmer, which I buddy read with my friend Gwen. And again, I'm reading way too many books about demonic possession lately, and I'm not going to read any more this year because I've read like 3, and I'm like, girl, what are you doing? So I need a break. But this is a book that is set in suburbia, and it's with these women who are all friends. There's a group of 4 women, and they want to concoct this like she shed where they can kind of escape their kids, escape their husbands, and just kind of have a space for themselves. But when they start digging up, something sinister is let loose, and one of the friends ends up being possessed, and you get the story from there. I'm not going to say much more because I don't want to spoil anything, but I think if you like books set in suburbia, or that remind you of like Stepford Wives kind of feels. It's not really Stepford Wives, but I really like those suburbia stories, so I want to read more. So I'm definitely going to pick up more books like this. But set in suburbia, it's honestly, if you liked the vibes of Finley Donovan and the story and the friendship of my best friend's exorcism, I think that you would really like this book, because that is exactly what it felt like. It's an adult version of my best friend's exorcism, except instead of just like 2 best friends, you've got a group of 4 friends. There is one that's a little bit more connected to the girl that's possessed than the other. But it's just really good, and it definitely had Finley Donovan vibes. I felt like the book did a good job of breaking up the scary parts with humor, but it was definitely scary, and it was also really funny at some parts, like haunted Roombas. I mean, that's like, is it a spoiler? Like, you don't know there's a haunted Roomba in there, but like, you don't know the whole story, but just let that be something that piques your interest to pick this up, because it's just like wild. But I do think this was a really good book. I ended up rating it 4 stars. It does set the book up for a sequel, which honestly, like, I wish it was just one and done, because I think there is going to probably be a sequel, and that kind of made me a little sad because I just wanted it to be one and done. But I do think this is a good book, and I would recommend it. Next up, let's talk about some cozy mysteries. So again, this is in a different section, but this was a buddy read. So I buddy read In the Company of Witches by Auralee Wallace with my friend Gwen again. So clearly we are doing a lot of buddy reads this month. And this was the Cozy Hollow book club pick. So my friend Lauren from Lauren Love Reads, Caitlin from Pride and Paperback, and Rachel from Rachel Hope, I believe, here on YouTube, and Happy Go Lovely Sleeves over on Instagram. They started the Cozy Hollow book club this month, and this is their first pick. So this is a story that is set in I think it's like a New England, yeah, it's a New England town. Very, again, Stars Hollow, Gilmore Girls vibes, cozy Hallmark vibes, practical magic vibes. All those things are in this book to me. So this follows our main character, Bryn Warren, and Bryn and her aunts own this like cozy witchy Airbnb, and somebody ends up being murdered in their Airbnb, and now they're trying to like clear their names and also find out who did it. Bryn is our main sleuth in this story, but you also have her aunts Izzy and Nora who take a front seat in this as well. I think I would have enjoyed it more if Bryn had not been the main character, because I really didn't like Bryn as much as I liked her aunts. And it was hard because I felt like we couldn't get all the attention on Bryn because you had so many other like people that seemed to be trying to be a main character, like Izzy and Nora. I really liked Nora's character the most. She's one of the aunts, and she's kind of like sassy, and I just really loved her. Izzy is more of the like sweet, kind, non-conflict kind of aunt. This was just a really good story. It's a little bit paranormal. It's witchy, and yeah, I thought it was good. I gave it a 2.5 star because I couldn't really decide what I wanted to rate it. So a 2 star for me is it's just okay, and a 3 star for me is it was good. And so I fall a little bit in between because I feel like overall the story was just okay for me, but maybe it's more realistically like a 3 star read because I did think it was good and there's a lot of things I remembered from this book. But overall, I just thought I'd read another cozy mystery. This is my second cozy mystery. I'll share with you my first one that I ever read in a minute. I have not read a lot of cozy, so I'm speaking not from like a cozy mystery experience, but from a perspective of someone who's new to the genre. And I don't think this is the type of cozy that I like. I think I like a little bit, not that this wasn't whimsical, but I think I like a little bit more of a lighthearted cozy, which is weird because I don't really know how to explain my thoughts on this book. The book explores grief, but I don't feel like it was delved into enough. I feel like it was sprinkled. I don't really feel like it was just there. I feel like it hit a little bit in the beginning and then it hit a little bit in the end. And I liked the first 3 chapters and the last 3 chapters, but the middle just kind of drug on for me. I did enjoy it, but I just didn't, like, it was just okay. Like, I don't know, like in comparison to the other cozy that I read and the other cozy that I'm in the middle of right now, this just wasn't my favorite. It just felt really long. And so I don't know, I have such mixed feelings on this because I didn't hate it at all, but I just think it was okay. So I don't know, but I will say that everybody else that has read this, except for maybe 1 or 2 people that I know, rated it 2 or 3 stars. I think most people really love this one, but for me, it was just okay. I probably won't continue in the series just because I'm not really interested. But yeah, I don't know. I just really have conflicting feelings on this book because I don't feel like it did what it was trying to do well, in my opinion. It just didn't hold my attention. But on a lighter note, the first cozy that I ever read that I actually started last October and decided to restart and finish this October is Curse the Day by Annabel Chase. This book was 4 stars, probably a 4.5 stars actually, and this is the first book in the Spellbound Paranormal Cozy Mystery series. This is such a fun ride. If you love things like Harry Potter and Halloween Town, this is your book. So this story follows our main character, Emma Hart, and Emma is a public interest lawyer, and she's on her way to meet a client when she is kind of taken aback by someone who looks like they're about to jump off a bridge and commit suicide. So she goes to save them, but it turns out that this is actually a fallen angel, and he is not in need of saving, and he ends up actually saving her. But in the meantime, she gets stuck because there is this cozy, whimsical little fantasy witchy town called Spellbound, and Spellbound is cursed. So anybody that is supernatural that lives there or that gets like comes into it can't leave. So there's this boundary around Spellbound. The town is cursed, nobody can leave. So Bryn gets stuck there and she finds out she's a witch, and so now she has to go to witch school. But not only that, there's a murder that has taken place, and the person that was murdered was the public defender of Spellbound, and so now she is taking over his job and is the new public defender and is trying to, one, take over the case for a theft, but then also try to figure out who murdered the public defender. Emma is just like my favorite sleuth. I love her so much. I love the story. There's a little bit of romance in here as well. It's so magical. It just gives me all of the Halloween Town, Harry Potter, maybe even a little bit of Sabrina the Teenage Witch with like her and Harvey vibes. It's just so good, and it's so easy to read, and it just made me happy. From the very first couple of pages, I love the book. The banter between Emma and then Daniel, the fallen angel, is just peak. It was just so good. And yeah, I just really love this one. It made me happy, and this is exactly what I would envision a cozy to be. The last cozy that I want to talk about is actually one I haven't finished yet, so I will give my full review at the end of November whenever I finish this one. I will probably finish it before the end of October, but I am doing my wrap-up a little bit soon. So that one is Spells and Shelves by Elle Adams, and I don't believe I mentioned this in my October video because originally I was going to do a Trying Cozies vlog, but I decided not to do that because so as an Enneagram 4, part of that is being an individualist. And so sometimes when things are trending, I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I still really want to read cozies, but I didn't want to do a vlog because I felt like everybody was doing vlogs or videos about cozies. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I don't want to do that. I don't want to add to. And I know it's popular and it probably, you know, would have gotten views, but as someone who is a human being, I'm not always here for views. Like, I love you guys and I really appreciate you watching my channel, but I do this because I love reading and I love books and I love talking to you guys about books. So I was like, if I did this at this point, it would really just be for views, and I just don't really feel like vlogging it. I just want to enjoy the cozies and be cozy while I enjoy them. So that's what I did. But anyways, that's why you might not have known that I was reading this book this month, but this is, again, Spells and Shelves. It's a library witch mystery by Elle Adams, and This book is giving me not the same vibes, but the same feelings as Curse the Day. This is a very whimsical story. It follows our main character, Rory Hawthorne. She is a bookshop assistant, and she ends up in a situation where some people are coming to try, like these strangers are trying to come and steal her dad's journal who had passed away. And then she ends up finding out that she is actually a witch, and she has aunts that she didn't know about, and they whisk her off to this enchanted library that she gets to work at now. And you guys, I'm just thinking like Harry Potter library vibes, but also with how like the staircases change in Harry Potter, like in the library, just all the magical things. So I love a magical library, and I'm really loving the story so far. I'm only like 56 pages in, but I do plan to finish this in the next couple of days, and I am really enjoying it so far. And lastly, we're going to wrap this up with some graphic novels. So first I have Crumbs by Danie Stirling. This is a young adult, very whimsical, witchy story about our main character. Her name is Ray, and Ray meets Laurie, who is a barista, or he actually works at this bakery. And the bakery is really neat because there are like witchy things, like things you can order that will like boost your mood, or like she always orders romance when she goes in there, and it's so cute. But anyway, she ends up falling in love with Laurie essentially, and Laurie wants to be a professional magician, and Ray wants to be, she's like training to be a part of this council. But this is just a really cool story. The art style in it is so stinking cute. I don't have a lot to say about it. I think this was a good book. I gave it 3 stars. It is very chunky, but it is based on a webtoon. So this is like a compilation of a webtoon. I do think it was just kind of surface level, but I think that's because of it being a webtoon and then being put into a book. So it wasn't like flowing great. And it was kind of surface level, but I did think it was cute, and I did enjoy my read of this. It took me like 2 sittings to read it because it is kind of a chunky boy, but I thought it was good. The magic system wasn't super fleshed out. Some things weren't super fleshed out, but again, this was a really cozy read. So if you want a really cozy, whimsical read with a little bit of romance, this might be a good book for you. Next, I read another young adult graphic novel, and that one is Witch for Hire by Ted Naifeh. I rated this 5 stars. I think it's probably between a 4 and 5 stars. I need to sit on it and think about it more, but my initial reaction was this is a 5-star book. This story follows our main character, Cody, and then also Faye Faulkner. So Cody's down here. She is new to the loser's table in the lunchroom, and then Faye has been at the loser's table in the lunchroom for a while, and she dresses kind of like a witch, and she doesn't really care what anybody thinks about her. But as we all know, you kind of do care what people think. You just kind of hide it a little bit better in those situations, I think. Or at least in high school, that's kind of how it is. But this is a really fun book to read. It does have some hard-hitting elements of bullying and different things like that. I love the art style in this book. This follows, like I said, our main character, Cody, and you have these kids in the school that are being affected by Shy Shelby, who is like this influencer who promises instant popularity to those who follow her twisted self-improvement program. This, I think, is loosely, I don't know if it's based off it, but if it's not based off it, it loosely reminds me of something that was going around on the internet a few years ago to like scare kids. I don't want to really bring it up because I don't want you to know like the story. I don't want to spoil it. But I did think this was really interesting and really good. I think it might be setting up for a second one, so I would definitely read that one. But yeah, it definitely deals with like some witchiness, some bullying and stuff like that, but I thought it was really good. And the last book that I want to talk to you about is Garlic and the Witch by Bree Paulsen. Again, this is another graphic novel. If you have not read this series, you absolutely should. It is so stinking cute. I'm Garlic. I say that every time I talk about this book, but Garlic has a little bit of anxiety, but she's just trying to find herself, and she's just the cutest little thing. This is the sequel to Garlic and the Vampire, and so this just follows Garlic again as she is noticing that she is getting a little bit more human-like features, and so she talks to Witch Agnes, who brought all the vegetables in the garden to life, and I won't say any more than that because I feel like it's easy to spoil. It's a short book, but if you're looking for a cozy autumnal read, I think this is a really cute one to pick up. I gave this one 4 stars. And that is going to be all 13 of the books that I read in the month of October. Again, I am so proud of myself for getting through all of these books. I am literally surprised that I got through all of these because I just haven't been reading a ton lately. And I know 3 of them were graphic novels, but still, if you take the graphic novels, no, 4 of them were graphic novels. So I read 9 books, not including graphic novels, but still, I'm very proud of myself. I think my favorite book that I read this month, that's such a tough one. Man, I really don't know. I have mixed feelings about this one because like I kind of want to unhaul it because it's so scary, but I think this was like the best written book that I read. but I really love the vibes from this one, even though it was 4 stars. So I really like this one. And even though this was 3 stars, this was like super memorable for me for some reason. Like I'll be thinking about this book. So I don't really know what my favorite is. I don't know. I enjoyed my reads. I feel like it was kind of an average reading month or like a 4-star reading month, but I did enjoy a lot of them. So yeah, I feel like I read a lot of spooky or witchy books this month. So if you want to leave, let's see. Oh wait, let's do an owl emoji. Is there an owl emoji? There's a little owl right here. Also, I became a part of the Night Owls this month on Gwen's. So Gwen has, okay, so if y'all don't know who Gwen is, shameless plug. Gwen is a new friend of mine, and she has a podcast called Talk Bookish to Me. I will link it down below. And I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts, but I do listen to some of her episodes because she's my friend and I want to support her. But she has a Patreon for her podcast called The Night Owls, and I became a Night Owl this month. And so I'm really excited. This is my first Patreon experience. So leave an owl for the Night Owls, and leave an owl because it's on the front of this book and I said so. So if you made it this far in the video, leave me an owl. And go check out Gwen's podcast and Gwen's channel, because she is like seriously one of the sweetest, most genuine people I've ever met, and it's just crazy. Like I don't know how I've been on YouTube this long and not already gotten to know her. So I love you, Gwen. But that is going to be it for today's video. Like I said, leave an owl if you made it this far. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. I love you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, friends.